Did you guys have are there any fun tales from the theater last night?
There's a theater from the. I'll save it for the podcast. So a little pre-theater, some dinner.
Oh,
tale.
yeah. I forgot about that.
Dinner first.
Elise was so excited about that. I forgot about that.
I wanted it to be a benefit for Funhaus, but again, I'm alone in my great ideas.
Big reveal from Elise. Big reveal.
Later in the show.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned for the show.
Welcome to Funhaus, everybody. This week's episode is sponsored by ExpressVPN. So thanks, ExpressVPN, for bringing us here today. My name is Daniel Schneider. I've got Elise Willems,
Hi.
Bruce Green, and James Willems with me today.
No relation to Bruce Green.
You guys aren't related?
No, not yet.
So,
I know, you never know.
Big reveal.
So this weekend, the newest film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe comes out. Brie Larson plays a sort of space cop hunting down these shape-shifting terrorist aliens.
Hero.
She's a noble warrior hero.
Anyway, she's hunting down these horrible shape-shifting terrorists known as Skrulls.
You say terrorist, I say freedom fighter.
She crash lands in Los Angeles in the mid-'90s and meets a young Nick Fury, and together they set out to track down those Skrulls and save the Earth.
Yeah, they're looking for like a pilot who has some technology that's like space warp technology.
There's a scientist,
Technology.
Who is
There's a MacGuffin.
Annette Bening.
There is definitely a big old MacGuffin.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel, pretty much what I think you'd expect from Marvel movies at this point. Not the best, not the worst. What'd you guys think of this movie?
What do you think?
Because I actually had a lot of fun.
I want to hear James.
You want to hear what I think?
Because I think James
Off
might
the
have the
top.
most negative.
You want to hear what I think?
I mean, you're going to tell
Well,
me.
but here's my perspective, and I've talked about this at length before, is when things become systematic, no matter if they're good, I don't like it. I don't like when
Routine.
You don't like Marvel house style?
Don't get me wrong. I love formula in movies, but I think you can slot in and out things. The Marvel franchise, there's a point before kind of Infinity War, really, or I guess before Black Panther. Ragnarok and Black Panther got me back into Marvel movies.
They broke
again.
that formula a little bit.
Because they tried something different. They're still formulaic movies, but they kind of were new takes on what to expect from a Marvel movie, coming off of the Doctor Stranges and the Ant-Mans, where I was like just I was like, I don't know if I can handle 3 of these a year because I don't know that there's enough there. This movie felt right in line with those.
The Ant-Mans and the Doctor Stranges.
The let's give it to someone who's got a real vision for this kind of movie. You know, like the Taika Waititis or the Ryan Coogler's of it. That's really step in. And then, of course, I think that, James Gunn isn't there anymore, but I always thought he had a really good and unique vision for the Marvel Universe. And then the Russos are like the kings of knowing how to like fucking do a huge stellar tentpole Marvel movie. This, honestly, thinking about it, because like Bruce, Elise and I in Autumn all went to see it, and then afterwards Bruce was like, what did you think? And I was like, I'm gonna let it stew for a little bit. And I kind of woke up this morning thinking that this is low tier, low tier for me.
Just because it doesn't have a style?
No, it's just because it just seems whatever. It doesn't. I wasn't really interested. By the end of it, I wasn't necessarily rooting for Captain Marvel or excited to see her appear in another movie or anything like that. And it wasn't her fault. It was kind of just how the whole movie played out. I don't know.
Yeah, I felt that way about Ant-Man. But then when he popped up in Captain America 3, I was like, Ant-Man. Okay, finally.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll get her in the next one.
I think a lot of Marvel characters might work better in the ensemble, like Doctor Strange. Mediocre movie, but in Infinity War, he was
put him next to Tony
rad.
Stark and have those two minds together.
Talking to each other,
Her and Captain America, I'm very excited to see together because I think that's going to be a fun dynamic.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there's some guessing that she might kind of take over that leader mantle for the Avengers. So there could be some conflict there between their moral leaders.
Bruce, you were really pumped for it. How did you come out feeling about it?
I think I could even cut to you going, "Woo! I'm excited."
I was
about a month ago.
I was very, very excited for this film because I wanted this to be another Black Panther. because I was excited about Black Panther. Well, then I don't know what it was about that movie, but I just got it all at once, and it hit me, and I thought about it a lot, and I wanted to see it again. I went and saw it again. It was just a great movie. This wasn't that. This to me was watching Captain America: The First Avenger. This was watching the first Thor. I feel bad for, I guess I don't feel bad, but like I don't know that this character, since she has to jump immediately into the biggest Avengers movie of all time, she doesn't really get her chance to sort of stretch her legs like Thor did in Thor Ragnarok, or Captain America did in Winter Soldier and Civil War. And I don't so I can kind of see why this movie is low tier. Like, I agree with you. I don't necessarily think this was any better or worse than an Ant-Man or an Ant-Man and the Wasp or like a Iron Man 3. I actually thought Iron Man 3 was worse than this film, but
I enjoyed Iron Man 3 less than this movie.
Yes,
I would definitely say.
And that was a movie with style, though.
it had style, but it
That's
also
It's all
had
in
Shane
all the
Black
wrong
all
over it.
places.
Christmas.
All the wrong places. It's like
Shane Black has put Christmas in.
it begs the question, what if Pepper Potts was Iron Man? And I'm like, okay, that's a unique take, but no one ever asked that question or cared what the answer was.
Exactly.
This is at least focused on her.
It is. No,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah, yeah.
And by the end of it, James knows I love a huge conclusion. I love a big epic climax, like Incredible Hulk has when they slam their fists into cars and fight each other. This has about 5 minutes of that. It was 5 minutes of her really stretching her, like exploding up and destroying some cool stuff. And I was like, whoa!
But you know what?
And
is
then I
really
went back
cool
to zero.
Is that fucking mohawk hat?
That was awesome. I loved her suit.
Her style, her visual style
was awesome.
is great. I also think Brie Larson is a very cool
I thought so too.
Captain Marvel. I think she's fun. I think there's some issues there maybe with the script where
There's
they weren't sure if
some-
they wanted her to be this stoic, like
Icy.
Yeah.
icy person or someone who just loves to fucking scrap. Because there'll be moments where she's like someone will try and like interact with her and she's like, I don't know if I really feel like having a conversation with you. And then the very next scene, she's super playful.
Yeah, she's a kind of like struggling between being very detached and stoic and then also being like snarky and kind of having a dry wit. But I kind of point to like the director who would be directing her performance to say, okay, this is how you're going to portray this character.
yeah.
That obviously the director's shortcomings.
Well, there's two
And-
directors.
Two directors.
Yeah,
So
there's-
maybe
there's
that's
One who
part of
said
the-
be snarky
Yeah.
and the other
Yeah.
said don't.
And I would say that thematically, there's an issue with her character because a big theme that they push for this whole movie, and this is a little bit spoiler territory, is that she's told for so much of her life that in these different fields and interests she has, that emotion is weakness. Like she's too emotional is a phrase that's just hammered home for the entire film. So you would think like, okay, well, her reaction to that is probably no emotion,
Yeah.
be emotionless. But the movie never turns a corner and then later says it's okay to have emotion. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to, you can be strong and you can be a person with emotion. It never turns that corner thematically and tells us that message.
It doesn't. You're right. It doesn't
And
do
I-
it. Doesn't do a good job of telling you.
No, and
It
I
doesn't.
think that's a flaw, a major flaw of giving her any growth or progression as a character.
There is no change in her
Yeah.
character from the beginning of the movie to the end.
No.
The symbolism at the end of the film, I don't want to spoil it, but the symbolism at the end of the film, I think is supposed to be that turn, but it doesn't do a good job
Doesn't
of
do a
telling
good
you.
job of doing it.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's supposed to be like, because I was like, oh, I get it, but it doesn't. It's not like, and here's why, you know?
It's also tough because in terms of the plot structure of this movie, it starts with her not even knowing who she is.
Right.
Which, when that's your character's supposed to make an arc, right? And when the arc starts in the top of the arc,
Oh, I see.
and you don't
Yeah.
know what the first half of the arc was, that's tough. And I don't know. That's just a fucking scripting decision. I don't even.
Well, she would have needed to discover something in her past that changes her present, other
Yeah.
than maybe her allegiances.
Yeah, but it doesn't really. It does seem like the world changes kind of around her.
Exactly, yeah.
Like the roles of the world change around her, but she doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, watching it, I was like, man, I can't wait to see more of that Nick Fury.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's
Yeah.
how I kind of walked away from it.
He's
Yeah.
one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Oh, he's great.
It's almost a stealth Nick Fury movie. He's the second lead in this.
Yeah.
He has a
Yes.
lot of
He's-
screen time.
He's really good.
But I think it's the same like charismatic, witty Nick Fury we've come to expect that we're going to get. We just get a lot of him in this movie, and he's young, so he's not inexperienced, but
It's like unpolished.
he's
kinda.
greener.
Yeah, I like
and
it. I like it.
It's just it's so
it's fine.
weird that they gave him the like. It's
Yeah.
so weird. Like they both could have been having. It would have been so fun if they were having a great time together.
Yeah.
And sometimes
They're
she
trying to.
does.
I think
They were
they had a
trying
little
to.
bit of a buddy cop thing going on for part of
There are
maybe the
moments-
second act of the movie.
It's like she's holding back though in a lot of those moments, and I
Yeah.
get why, because she's a very serious soldier, right? Like that's her thing. But there's stuff like the spoiler, the tape moment,
Oh,
the
yeah.
thumbprint,
Oh, yeah.
and you're like, okay, this is kind of like inklings of a fun buddy cop or buddy relationship, but it never goes like whole hog enough. For me personally, this is not a character thing, but I felt like the movie held back on leaning into the 90s
Yes.
enough.
Oh yes.
it was more of a
such
wink,
a-
wink, nod, nod.
yeah,
remember
such-
this song?
Remember this store? Remember this store?
Remember Nine Inch Nails?
And songs that to me kind of in her like. There's a song that plays in her penultimate sort of fight scene that I was like,
can
God,
talk about that a
this
little
is
bit later.
cheesy.
It was
bad.
ham-fisted. Elise, I think you were the second most excited. So how did you feel about the film?
Really? I didn't.
I thought you were. I
Oh
thought you
no!
were.
I wanted to be excited for. I honestly did not really have excitement. I was excited for Wonder Woman when it was coming out. I was excited for Aquaman. I was hopeful for this movie.
Oh, you were hopeful. Okay,
I
got
feel
it.
like I was hopeful.
What did you think of it overall? How'd you feel? about
I didn't think it was like like really fun as I was watching it. Like
Yeah.
there were things I liked. I thought Ben Mendelsohn kind of like stole the
He's
show.
so fucking
He's always
awesome.
great.
He's great in every fucking
Everything.
I like
thing.
the
He's
line.
better in everything.
Yeah, he's
He's
great in
great in
everything.
bad movies though. Robin Hood and whatnot.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say this is a bad movie.
No.
And,
I
and
think
it
he
allowed
shines
him to be-
everywhere.
It was better than in Rogue One,
Yeah.
where they put him in there so that way he could report to a robot, a computer man. And I'm like, why? Just make Ben Mendelsohn the bad guy.
But you know,
he's
I,
so good.
I think like in terms of Captain Marvel, is we want her to be a hero, and in this, she like because she calls herself a noble hero warrior, or no, what does she call
Noble
herself?
warrior hero.
Hero.
Noble warrior
And
hero.
yes, I get the warrior part, but I didn't feel like the heroes. I felt like she's dealing with her own shit so much that I didn't feel the passion of a hero that wants to save everyone around her. You feel that with Wonder Woman, like
You do.
Maybe at the,
when
at the
Wonder
very
Woman.
end,
At
she
the-
gets a
When
heroic.
Wonder
absolutely
Woman's
right, yeah.
about to like cross no man's land, and they say like no one can do this, like you can't say like
And that's
no one
the
can
middle
save
of the
them,
movie.
and she says I will save them,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and she like crosses that no man's land. I get like tears every
Yeah, it's
time I
awesome.
see that
Yes.
moment.
well,
But I didn't like, and that's not to say that every hero has to have that like passionate turn, but and I think in the Marvel movies that's what it's sort of built on is these heroes believing in something bigger than themselves.
I agree.
I think it's weird too because again the way they structured this movie where she has this past that she doesn't remember, right? She has Wonder Woman's hero moment. Like she has it. But in the narrative structure of the movie it happens before any of the stuff that you're watching actually took place.
Oh sure.
Oh, I was
Like,
okay. All right. So you're
like
saying, yeah,
they
yeah.
try
Got
and
it, got
they
it,
try and
got it.
give her that hero moment,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's already happened. So she's already done it. So then that means that while you're watching her, she's already become the hero. So then what am I watching? You know, like it'd be cool and way easier said than done. Way easier said than done. But there's a lot of flashbacks in this movie, and if instead of it being flashbacks that she was like dreaming about or machines or whatever are causing to spawn in her, if both of the scenes were happening parallel.
yeah.
So you were getting her story
Oh, yeah.
after and her story before at the same time, but they matched. And it was almost like an inevitable cycle. Like no matter what you do to this woman, no matter how you hold her down, she will
Fight
be
back.
heroic.
Yeah,
She'll rise.
She will rise and be heroic.
Yeah.
Even if you take her memories,
Yeah.
you transport her to another planet, like you do all these things, like you send her across the galaxy, you do all these things, she will rise and she will be heroic. That to me, I could give myself goosebumps. But,
Gave
but like
myself
that to
goosebumps.
me, I think is maybe what the goal was. But because the movie isn't evenly paced between those two things.
Yeah, I'd say that's like a editing story structure.
Yeah.
Well,
issue.
I mean, to Dan's point, she has that moment at the very end of the film.
Mm-hmm.
And at the very end of the film, she's like, I'm going to go do this thing. And I was like, fuck yeah. Now she's a hero.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You know, but it took 2 hours to get there. And that's what I was waiting for. I was waiting for the Wonder Woman turn where like, because I got super fucking chills when she was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go save.
I also don't think it looked like it required that much effort from her. I think is another
think you're
issue.
probably right. Yeah, I think
I
you're
mean,
probably right.
they have to set her up to be this super OP, thing
yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's going to play into Avengers.
Yeah.
But they had a device, a physical and metaphorical device in this movie to make it so that way she couldn't just go ham, right? But it still didn't require much effort. Like
No, it seems too easy for her.
It still
I think
really
her
seems too
powers
easy.
are very ill-defined.
Which it's weird because you get the movies like Thor. Thor, for the most part, it seems easy, but then they still find a way to knock him down.
Well, he's a god, but he's fighting other gods.
And then he finds a new level of strength,
Yeah.
and then it becomes easy again because that's the way you want to watch Thor, is having a great time kicking ass, right? And it's weird. They have moments where she's having fun kicking ass, and they have other moments where like this is it, but it still seems easy. I don't know.
So you were talking about the structure earlier, and I actually did sort of appreciate the fact that this wasn't the same superhero origin we've seen from Marvel like 17 times.
Okay, Dan,
Like,
that's valid. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
you know, if it had been that where, you know, at the end of the first act, she gets her powers and then she goes to space and does all these
No,
things.
yeah.
It's just we have seen that 15 times.
Yeah.
We don't need
Yeah.
to see that again. So it is nice that they did something slightly different.
You know,
than
you're actually
normal.
making me look at the movie differently now. Because I think you're right. Because a lot of the complaints that we've always had is like Black Panther fights himself.
Yeah.
And Ant-Man fights himself. That doesn't happen in this film.
I would kind of argue that it did.
What? No, she
Ever
doesn't
so
fight a mirror
slightly.
image of herself.
For why?
though.
But how?
I mean, from the neck down, she literally does at the end of the movie.
He's got slightly different powers.
What?
She changed color armor.
Well, we can talk about spoilers in a minute.
Yeah, I was talking about. 'Cause I don't know what you're talking about.
This movie did make like $20 million last night.
That's good.
That's pretty
No, it's
crazy.
great.
That's good.
That's like fifth best in Marvel films.
The thing
so
is,
far.
even when Marvel makes a mediocre movie, it's still a good movie.
It's still
I'm not like
enjoyable.
walking out of it
Yeah.
wanting to kill myself like Jurassic World.
Yeah.
Like,
that's
you
a good
know,
way
like,
to put everything into perspective. If we
You know?
knock on this movie a lot, it's still a fun film.
You'll still
Yeah.
enjoy it.
The thing is, like, for me, when I go to the cinema, I want to be pleasantly surprised and delighted. And I didn't, like, there were kind of moments I did, like,
I didn't get it either.
there were some humor moments a little bit that did, but I didn't really feel that way that I felt in some other, I felt that way like in Aquaman.
Oh.
I felt delighted, maybe not for the right reasons, but I still felt like I was, wowed.
Aquaman's dumb as shit, but
Yeah.
it's
It knows it's
a
dumb as shit.
massive spectacle
Yeah.
Sure.
without stopping for basically the whole movie, and it never feels like something is out of tone with it. There are really good, really genuinely good, some of the best Marvel humor moments, I think, in Captain Marvel, except it's like surrounded on both sides by scenes that don't prime you to want to laugh. Like,
It's
They're
a
not building
tonally
you, yeah.
different
Like,
Marvel movie.
without spoiling too much, like Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury has a relationship with a cat in this movie, but all of the scenes felt like they were things that happened in reshoots because it would just be like, Dan and I are having a conversation, and then it just cuts to Bruce somewhere in our office playing with a cat. Kind of like it didn't feel like it was all within the scene.
was like
happening
it was like
naturally.
injected.
It's not like Drax going, "I'm standing here to be invisible."
Yeah,
like that's
yeah.
that's a comedic beat that comes off the tails of something very serious, but it's within the scene.
Right.
So you laugh at it in a better way.
I really
you know?
like her and Samuel L. Jackson together.
They
Oh,
really do.
they
That was probably the best part of the
Yeah.
movie.
Great
One of the
relationship.
best parts of the movie
Yeah.
was them together, just riding around in a car or whatever.
Samuel L. Jackson's great.
That the de-aging effects.
Oh my gosh, it looked
I thought-
amazing.
There was
Yeah.
only one scene where I was like, that looks slightly janky, but for the most part, it just kind of
Yeah.
blended away.
How old do you think Samuel L. Jackson is, though?
He's 70.
He's 70.
I know. So like they didn't really have to de-age him that much. He de-ages
looks
himself
great.
every
Well,
day
I
of
was
his
thinking
life.
about like A Time to Kill, and I'm like, he didn't even look that good back then.
Yeah.
You know?
No, he just looks
Yeah.
great.
Some Samuel L. used to write into his contracts that they could never film him running because he thought he looked like an idiot when he was running. But they actually got him to
Oh, did
run very briefly in this film.
That's
Oh,
funny.
that reminds me. Brie Larson, not a great runner.
No,
She's not.
No,
I noticed that too.
I noticed that too. And she's running for the train. I was like,
She was like,
and I don't know if that may have been direction. That may
Well,
have,
it could be the really uncomfortable suit or whatever.
Maybe.
It's hard to run
But
in
there's
leather.
a point where she doesn't have shoes on, and then another point when she's running after the train, and I was like, ugh!
yeah, no, it was weird. It was really weird.
No one stopped and told her how to run.
Someone who's also not a great runner, I can say that maybe that was someone directing her to run in a certain way that it would look better on film.
Maybe,
Like,
yeah.
Because it didn't.
I don't know, but
We'll cover your bottom half of your knees in CG.
I was like,
She did not look good running.
She did not look good.
She's a physical specimen. There are lots of points where she's doing action stuff, and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
But the running was not.
I also really like that her costume is like it switches when she goes to super mode, so that way she can just be a CG character flying around blasting CG beams everywhere. That's fine because that's like climax of the movie. But for the most part, it's her in a suit with like wire fights with effects to accentuate it, and I really appreciated that. I thought maybe the editing of the movie as a whole was a little spastic.
Yeah, especially in the fight scenes.
Yeah, like there's the chase scenes and stuff where it'll cut away and I'm like, what am I looking at? And then a car hits another car. I'm like, whose car is that? And then it just goes back to somewhere else again.
Yeah, I agree.
But that was kind of like throughout. The whole movie felt very separated.
I thought the special effects were good or bad. It depends on how you look at it. For Marvel, I like them. Other people are like, they're garbage. And I'm like, okay, fine. Well, they all look the same.
I like effects.
Either way, I liked them. I also thought that, so it's really hard to sell this when you're doing the beam power, and I thought she sold it pretty well.
Yeah.
Power beam fist is the lamest looking.
Because when she's doing this thing, everybody looks dumb doing it. And I thought she actually did a pretty good job of selling that.
And I think it's such a, like we said, it's such a tightrope to walk because she does a lot of this effortlessly.
Yeah.
So it's like, how does she do that with it looking cool and effective, but also looking like she's so powerful? So it's nothing for her to just,
Well, at the end of the movie, they show it in the trailer. She goes like this, and that was fucking cool.
That was really cool.
I thought that was awesome.
I like that because I thought it was something else, and then when you see it's just her just like going like the equivalent of cracking her
Let's
knuckles.
do
I was like,
this.
oh fuck.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
That's a really cool moment.
Are we in spoiler territory yet?
Hold on, we can do
quite.
one non-spoiler thing first. Though.
Cool.
Say this: those Skrull prosthetics.
Oh, well, they're talking.
How in 2019 can we not get the shit out of their mouth?
Because Ben Mendelsohn still gave an amazing performance, but you could tell he had like fake something
Bruce
in his
is like,
mouth.
it sounded like everyone had marbles in their mouth. And I'm like, they didn't do a costume test, and they were like, he sounds terrible.
Or just
like,
dub him.
Anything. I just don't understand how that happens.
There was one scene where I thought they were, was it in the records room maybe, where I was like, I think he's dubbed right now.
80
Maybe,
yards.
yeah.
Because James is right. I mean, like that was. I wanted to lean over to James because it was the first thing I noticed.
I was
out
like,
of his mouth.
I was like, this is unacceptable.
Yeah, because the first time you come across his character, it's like a disembodied voice, and it's kind of hard to understand what he's saying.
Yeah.
Well, except that it's kind of hard to understand what he's saying because he has an Australian accent.
Yeah.
So you're like, why are Australians talking right now?
Why is an Australian Skrull?
And then it's revealed to be Skrulls, and then immediately it's him now not just recording into something, it's him doing an actual performance, and he's like, and I'm like, really? We can do this now? Also, they made two really lame. They do the Blockbuster joke where she lands into a Blockbuster. I know what year it is, Blockbuster. and then she also goes like, "What is this? Tango and Cash?" Like they do really cheap things, but then immediately she leaves, and then she's like, "Where are your communications?"
Radio Shack.
And then it's like Radio Shack, another thing. And I'm like,
Thankfully,
that's too close.
they were too close. Thankfully, they didn't say Radio Shack.
Yeah.
I at
They
least
just
appreciated
pointed
that.
at
They just pointed at it.
Because for the internet, for the Chinese version of it, they have to make it like Beijing Comms or whatever, like some other company did that in the 90s. But I was like, those are too close together.
Yeah.
Those are the only things that made it 90s
I
at
was
all.
really wishing they would have just kind of more texture when it came to the 90s stuff. Like, they're walking past the window at the Radio Shack, and there's TVs in the window, and there's Bill Clinton on screen going, we've seen a mysterious disturbance. And,
what's the definition?
sky.
Yeah. She's wearing a Nine Inch Nails shirt. And
She's wearing the grungy like flannel.
Yeah.
The music, whatever. We'll get to the music.
Yeah.
I do. With all the references, I want to give a shout out to the one guy in my theater who busted out laughing, going, "Bah, the '80s!"
Oh no!
wow.
It was pretty incredible. I was in one of those theaters with people that had clearly seen all the trailers, but still clapped and laughed at all the moments from the trailers.
I love when
They're
people,
having a
I love hit an old woman.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like the first promo photo that they released for this movie.
They're having a great time. Hey, they're having a great
time.
Let me ask you something, Bruce.
Yes.
Is protecting your internet privacy important to you?
I would say yes, absolutely.
Well, we should get you to look into ExpressVPN.
Okay, we'll do.
I do a ton of my shopping online. Saves me a lot of time and hassle. Think about how much online shopping you do. Did you know that without a VPN, your credit card information is in danger from hackers? If a hacker discovers your information online, they can spend your money and access your shopping accounts all because you didn't have protection. ExpressVPN encrypts your internet data, preventing others from sniffing your information over the network. I'm able to shop worry-free anywhere on the internet, and I know I'm protected. You too can shop online with peace of mind thanks to ExpressVPN. They have server locations in 94 countries, giving you plenty of options to choose from. ExpressVPN is extremely easy to use. You can connect with just one click. This is internet without restrictions. Securely stream or download content from anywhere, anytime, with no worries. Security and protection with ExpressVPN is less than $7 a month, with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Take back your internet privacy today and find out how you can get 3 months free by clicking the link in the description. expressvpn.com/filmhouse. Take back your privacy today with ExpressVPN. So yeah, go to expressvpn.com/filmhouse and take back your internet privacy today with ExpressVPN. Thanks again, ExpressVPN, for bringing us here today to talk about Captain Marvel. So I think we can go full spoilers now, because I think there are actually some really good twists in this movie.
There are.
And stuff that maybe we shouldn't have ruined. Some terrible stuff at the end of the film.
Spoilers, everybody.
But yeah, spoilers. If we end up stop talking spoilers, I'll put like a time code up here somewhere that you can skip to the end.
Cool.
If we stop, which we don't generally.
I actually think, because I was thinking about this last night, I think when we start spoiling this film, I think it might ruin the movie.
Yeah.
I think if you go and watch the movie knowing the spoilers, I don't know that you're going to have even the slightest hint of a good time.
I would say that aside from like spoiling jokes and like bits, it's pretty predictable.
They are. You're right. They are.
But it's almost as though someone, when they released the first images of this movie, said, "This is the bad guy."
We all knew that.
we know like Ronan and the Kree from like the past episode, and like the fact that
we know he survived.
I did want more lead pace.
Demon Hansu or whatever. He's showed up in. Was he in Guardians?
Jaimin Hansu.
Was it Jaimin?
Which, by the way, how does he get at the end? He gets his ass kicked, but he survives till Guardians. But they didn't explain that at all.
But I was kind of like, like when they do it sucked because like they did the turn with the Skrulls, where it's like, no, they're actually the good guys, but there was so much humor that once they became the good guys, the Skrulls brought, and I was like, oh man, if they had just been fun the whole movie, because I loved the science guy.
Oh yeah,
the Skrulls.
Science Skrull.
He was my favorite.
He was the best.
He was the best. And then when the file's loading, they're all waiting for the file to load, and it cuts to the Skrull. And I was like, those Skrulls are like pure comedic value because they look so ridiculous.
I love
remember
the
that
Skrulls.
being how files worked though back then.
Well,
off a disc.
It was like unzipping it.
Come on, guys. I was there.
It was the 80s.
Well, James is kind of right. They kind of fudged it a little bit.
It was a funny moment though. I'm just
moment.
nitpicking. That's not actual criticism. That's a joke.
I know, but as James was saying, Jude Law was the bad guy.
Jude Law was, of course, the bad guy.
I think everybody
Not
knew
too
that.
hard to see
I
that.
feel like
we all
one's-
knew that. Yeah.
Except for the person who gasped next to me.
those are the people having fun, though, right?
They were having a great time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those are the
talking
best
at
audience
full volume
members.
the whole time.
I know his eyes looked evil, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, Jude Law was the bad guy.
And was he honestly that bad?
I mean, he was just a soldier in the enemy army,
doing
and then
his
halfway
job.
through, they were like, "Oh, we've been saying we're the good guys, but they're actually the bad guy, or we're actually the bad guys." But I mean, that's kind of war, right?
Yeah. When a conflict goes on for like thousands of years, like both sides are bad guys. And I guess they didn't ever dip back to like showing how the Skrulls are bad.
Well,
they were immediately once the turn.
They are
was,
good.
Yeah,
I'll
say-
good guys.
well-
But that's like not it at all.
I'll say
makes
that
it weaker.
I was like thinking, I was like, man, I was really glad with that Skrulls twist because one, we get more Ben Mendelsohn. And he's fucking great.
True. Thank God he
We
does.
also get those really
The
good
fun
moments
Skrulls,
with the other Skrulls.
you know?
It's kind of like they're kind of
like
now
a
they're like
sitcom
these.
Skrulls.
They almost feel like a Star Trek.
Yeah,
joke
they
race
did.
at
They got
this point.
tracksuits on. They're
But-
walking out.
I was
They did.
thinking about it.
Adidas.
The first interaction with the Skrull is when that sniper woman, who, by the way, I don't know anyone's name. I don't know Jude Law's name.
know.
I don't know any other character.
The woman
other
from
than-
Crazy Rich Asians.
Then her is Veers, and then Fury. That's the only characters I know. Which is never like an amazing
No, you're right.
aspect of a
You're
movie.
absolutely
But
right.
when the movie first started, they go to a planet that they think is being invaded to protect the people there. Turns out the Skrulls are already there, and there's this woman who's sniping, who's watching the scene, and then one of her soldiers
Women,
comes
yeah.
up next and like goes like, "No, don't shoot." and then she sees that he's also over there, and she's like, "Oh shit, it's a Skrull," and it turns out it was a Skrull.
Yeah.
And I was like, when I was watching it, I was going, well, that's dumb. Why didn't he just fucking blast her in the back of the? Why would he go, don't shoot? Like, I'm going to have a conversation. Let's talk this out. But if you think about it from them as being not necessarily a violent
The refugees.
refugee
Yeah, they're
kind of
refugees.
thing, it would make sense. I'm going to try and use deception
Right.
to diffuse this situation.
And he
And I
did.
appreciated that.
Yeah.
That being said, later on in the movie, one of them tries to snipe her from the roof of the Radio Shack or
Oh, yeah.
whatever, which gets the
Oh,
chase
yeah,
scene.
that's right.
And that kind of, I mean, I guess you could make an excuse that it would have stunned
No, no,
her
no, no, no.
or whatever, but like he tries to kill her, and then later on they're like, "No, you're the key.
Yeah,
we would just
yeah.
wanted to talk to you." And I'm like,
And then they're like shielding their child. They're like, don't look at it.
yeah.
Right. Well,
What
to
about
Dan's-
that guy?
To Dan's point, he says they turn good and then they turn good, and you're right. That's exactly what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, every Skrull is good now? Like that didn't that and I so like if you look back, okay, maybe that Skrull, the one that was sniping her, was bad.
Or he pulled his accidental. It could have been
I know.
accidental trigger. He's nervous. They're scared.
He was like,
He's Sniper
fuck
Skrull.
them. I know the rest of them are good, but I'm a bad
I'm
seed.
the bad one.
Yeah.
Ronan without his black makeup threw me for a
Yeah.
loop. Didn't care for
It's
that.
the 90s.
I love
you
Lee
know?
Pace so much.
Lee Pace is the
I love
wanted
that too.
more of
Lee Pace
Ronan.
is the
Me
best.
too. I wanted him as
But he-
more than a hologram
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
it's-
Blueface.
Well, we got him. We got him as more than a hologram.
at the end,
very
right?
end.
The very end.
Everyone who told me, they were like, listen, Lee Pace is fucking awesome, and Ronan is one of the best Marvel characters, completely underutilized in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Underutilized,
is what I've been told. And then it was like, oh, guess who's coming back for Captain Marvel? And then she goes, leave, and he goes, goodbye.
I know.
Like, that's basically
He's there for like literally 3 minutes.
his
yeah.
whole thing.
The blue makeup is pretty rough. I think everyone looks kind of lame with the bright blue makeup
It
on
was
their face.
weird how most were blue, but then Jude Law wasn't blue.
So they showed
And
like
some people were not.
they were on the subway at one point, and some of them were not blue.
in Hala
Not
or
including
whatever?
including Jude Law. Some of them weren't blue. So I
Yeah.
guess not every Kree is blue.
They have to. I feel like that has to be a thing to make her believe that she would be Kree as well.
Right, oh,
like
that's
they
true.
have to look like her. They're like they can't just be like you're Kree Larson, and then, she believes it. She has to look like him giving her his blue blood.
There's also it's funny because I was making all the connections after the movie and realizing how dumb I am. Because like Jaimin Hansu, when you see him there, I was like, oh, he's playing another character, and that's weird. And then I was like, oh, what the fuck was I thinking? And then if you really think about this movie, and they show the trailers how they're like with the Kree have always been bad, and in the Guardians they established that they are bad. And then in this movie, I was like, I guess
Noble warriors.
They were able to fool me long enough to be like, oh, I guess the Kree are good now, and that was something that hadn't resolved
okay.
in my head. And the more if I had just thought about it a little more, I would have
Yeah.
been like, wait a minute, Kree are always bad. Kree are always bad.
Because I definitely went in with the Guardians background being like,
Yeah, no, I know, but you know the Kree are bad.
Yeah, we're told they're bad. So like,
yeah. So if you've seen that movie and thought about it at all, yeah.
It is weird because it felt like the reason you go back to the 90s to make this movie is so that way you can introduce a new character that doesn't fuck everything up, right?
What do you mean by that?
Like it's so far removed in time from the events of Avengers and beyond and
Okay,
Iron
all right,
Man.
I see what you're saying.
Right? That like you go back to so that way you can not fuck with those things. It makes sense.
Yeah.
A little
But
bit.
it still seems like they fucked with a lot of stuff,
Yeah,
like the
they
Kree
absolutely
things. Like I
Yeah.
still have a lot of questions.
yeah, because they could have used the time advantage to say, well, the Kree weren't bad before.
See, that's what I
Yeah.
thought. I thought they were
You
going to do
know?
that. I thought they were going to say the Kree, hey, they used to be good, but then Ronan took over.
Yeah,
That would have been
that's- yeah,
interesting.
that's exactly
That's
what
what
I
I
That
thought.
would've
thought.
been-
Yeah.
But it seems weird that it's like, no, they're bad.
They're bad all the time.
They're pretty bad.
right to the core.
They use an AI to like do your stuff.
That's right, the artificial intelligence god.
Yeah,
that
but
they
which-
have.
an
the
AI
supreme intelligence.
I'm sorry.
An
Supreme
AI,
intelligence.
which if you get out of line, will beam fight you.
That was
I
one
knew
of
you'd
the
like the-
mistake.
stupidest fucking things in that
Make
movie.
no
when
mistake.
Annette Bening is like they're lasering each other.
I'm like, this is just she's just dreaming this.
Yeah.
There was
made
one,
no sense.
one twist because I knew James was going to hate the beam fight, but then there was one twist in that beam fight, which was that she didn't fight. She stopped and let the beam hit her. And I was like, all right, that's cool.
I don't remember that.
Because they didn't do this thing where they were like
she
beaming
didn't,
at
she
each
didn't
other.
beam back. She just took the beam
She
and
just
walked
took the-
into the beam.
Yeah, yeah. And I was
But
like,
I
all
was
right, that
like,
was something.
I was like, but this
in
is
her head?
a computer
You're right,
in
you're
her
right.
brain.
You're right. I know. I'm always
like
looking for those little
It would have been
positives.
funny.
Yeah.
But it would have been so funny if they leaned into the 90s and at some point the beam fight was represented as a bar filling up like on
yeah.
a disk drive referenced earlier. Like if they had leaned into the 90s as
Give it a
opposed to
little more.
just playing don't go chasing waterfalls, right?
Oh, so what
Oh,
really
God.
bothered
Whole song
me
didn't come out
was
until
when
98.
she's fighting and they played "Just a Girl"
Oh,
by No
God, it
Doubt.
was so
I was
bad.
like, that is just insulting.
That was
like,
the first thing Autumn said. She was like, why didn't they at least cut the scene to the song? And I was
Yeah.
I totally agree.
well, it's just choose a difference. Like, you don't have to shove it down our throats.
no, it's true.
That she's a woman. Like,
there's so much cool
just let her
90s
be cool.
music to pull from. And
Yeah.
you use fucking No Doubt.
just let her be cool.
Well,
without
also-
singing a song about how she's a girl.
I didn't just listen to 90s music in the 90s. I know you got to set the time period. But she's like, I'm going to work on my plane and listen to TLC. Well, it just came out this week.
I guess if this happens in mid 90s and she was gone for 6 years, her music would have been like late 80s
Yeah,
music.
and I
Oh,
just
yeah.
felt like
Good
But
point.
she doesn't have a music because she doesn't, I don't know.
She doesn't have an identity,
She doesn't-
really.
I know
Yeah.
that they were a little bit more of early 2000s, but considering that he was in the theater with us watching it, it would have been nice if they had played some NSYNC. So Lance
Oh, yeah.
Bass.
This is the big reveal, everybody.
Oh, wow.
This is the big reveal. Elise, tell the story.
During the spoilers,
We're
too.
at dinner, and I look over and I see behind Bruce none other than NSYNC's Lance Bass. And I don't want to be gawking at him. I'm impressed, obviously. I don't want to be gawking at him, though. So I'm trying to be subtle about it. I message Bruce and I say, I don't want to alarm you, but Lance
me.
Bass is behind you. So, you know. And then I say to James and Bruce, I'm like, obviously we don't want to interrupt him, disturb him while he's eating, but if there was any point, maybe he's leaving the restaurant when we do whatever, we, compliment him, tell me like his work, get a photo. Could you imagine a photo of Bruce and James with Lance Bass? What kind of traction that would get on the internet?
She described it,
happened?
I believe, as one of the internet's biggest crossovers.
Crossers.
even
and
understand.
people would be like, Lance, you got to go to Funhaus. You got to go to Funhaus. Lance, you got to go to Funhaus.
He's
They
busy
don't-
going to space.
They don't want to do it now.
That's right. He's going to space.
They don't
I
want.
said to Elise, I really think that missed branding opportunity. He should have gone Lance Bass.
Because of
Right,
NSYNC.
But what about
no,
the
I get
fish?
it,
Yeah, what does
Yeah,
he have
he
to do
likes.
with fish?
Maybe
He
he
doesn't have anything to do with
Maybe he
fish.
fished.
Maybe you
Either
don't
way,
know him very
we
well.
didn't take a picture with Lance Bass. We didn't
did
want to
not.
bother him because he was eating.
Yeah.
What was he eating?
I don't
He
know.
had the base.
But you tell us in the comments if you think you would have liked or retweeted that tweet.
Yeah, like
I like the people saying no. No, I would not.
No.
comment L for like and T for or an R for retweet.
R for retweet.
But also a 0 for I would have not interacted with it
0
in any
for
way.
G
paper
if you wanted
form.
Lance in a gameplay. Because I really think that that's something people would have been impressed by.
I'm impressed. I don't know. I just took a picture with it.
In terms of what I was mentioning earlier, her final showdown is with a bunch of people that look exactly like her.
Oh, yeah.
Is what I was like.
In a dark space.
Do you mean? Oh, you mean the people
station.
like basically her troop?
Yeah.
Yeah. She was fighting. Oh no, I wasn't talking about that. I
You're
was
talking about fighting a giant missile?
I was talking about the missiles and the spaceships.
Yeah.
And basically like because Ronan is not her exact opposite.
That's why I wish that was more of it. She went up there and she was like, brap, 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 brap. And then he was
done.
like, I'm done.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah,
Like,
because when you
I
were like,
didn't
it's
mean-
5 minutes, it really was.
It literally
He's
is
like,
5 minutes, yeah.
hindsight, probably shouldn't have fired all the missiles
At one spot.
one exact spot. That was my bad. I'm gonna go through my my honeycomb portals. Yeah,
That was a really cool shot though when all those missiles were exploding.
Oh, it was great.
I thought that was a really neat effect.
it was
shot.
cool.
It was like I said, this was like I know this is really controversial, but the first Iron Man was the same problem. Nothing happens really in it. There isn't much action, and at the very end of the movie, he flies the one into space and then drops him. And I was like, that was the conclusion to
yeah,
this
we
film.
saw, yeah.
Was 1 minute.
Yeah.
And this at least had a little more like their explosive energy and like she's fighting off huge fucking ships and stuff like that. That was cool. But it only lasts 5 minutes.
It does feel kind of cheap that all of a sudden, she takes off the containment patch or
Yeah.
whatever, her Nicorette patch, and like she's super powerful.
Yeah, that they
And
don't
then-
like. They show you once at the beginning, but then don't really.
And then she's able to like fly through a spaceship and explode it.
Yeah.
It's just, I think her powers were a little ill-defined. Also, when she just like put Jude Law back in a spaceship and zapped its engine and then
he's
fly
like,
off
"Woo,
into the
there it
sky.
goes."
It's like none of that made sense to me.
I was also a little unclear on the engine itself because one of the twists is that her mentor as a human being was actually a Kree, but a Kree who was a separatist and actually believed that the Kree were bad, and so she was helping the Skrulls, but she was going to build them a weapon.
I thought it was a Lightspeed engine. They kept saying Lightspeed.
It was a
engine.
Lightspeed engine, but then everyone else referred to it as a weapon.
Oh, I thought it was an engine so that way the Skrulls could escape.
That's what I
kinda
thought.
what I
was.
thought.
I
Oh,
thought it was an engine they could put
But it
on
was
a
supposed
ship.
to-
But it's a
was it going to-
weaponizable thing.
They kept referring it to something that ends
Yeah,
the war, which is
I guess-
basically the Skrulls running away.
Maybe the Kree would be able to weaponize
I'm
that
sure the Kree-
technology.
just
in a
like
different
nuclear
way.
technology, you can use
Yeah.
it for power, but you can also like use it to explode something.
To
Well,
Destruction.
because at the very end, the last thing Ronan says is like, "We'll come back for the weapon," and they go, "You mean the core, sir?" And he goes, "No, her," and then he leaves. But he
Yeah, I think
doesn't
Dan's
matter. He's
right
dead.
about
He's
He
not
doesn't
coming
come back.
Duality.
It's a shame.
So it was a little unclear. I guess she was just building a light speed thing so that way she could send her lab.
That's what it sounded like to
somewhere
me.
else.
So they could leave.
But that still seems like a really shitty solution to that war.
Yeah.
just
run away,
run
keep
away
running.
even more.
There weren't many of them left. I guess that was the point.
Yeah.
So
Was that supposed to be all the scrolls?
not all of them? I think they were like spread throughout the galaxy.
Yeah, because there was a line about how like there are thousands or hundreds of thousands of us all separated
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever.
So I just assumed that the engine was to get them to a home planet. That's what I thought. Like they'd find their own world and then settle
Yeah.
there.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong.
I guess that makes sense because their excuse to get her off of Earth, like when you think about her leaving Earth again, it seems kind of weird. But like to get her off of Earth, I guess it makes sense that she has to shoot their engine every couple jumps to power them.
blast
So that
it.
way
Yeah.
until they find a planet and they're
Yeah.
like, boom. And then she's like, all right, I'll go find someone else. And then boom, launch the engine. That makes sense.
I will say-
all right, I rescind that confusion. I get it now.
Nick Fury not like doing a bad job at saving the planet to wait so long to call Captain Marvel back?
Good point.
Like,
Good
what
point.
about the first Avengers or the second Avengers or
Yeah.
the first part of the third Avengers?
I think there was
there was a lot of world-shattering events. That
I
he
would
just
say
didn't
that
call
is
her.
very ethnocentric of you, Dan, because you're thinking of, yes, the Earth humanity.
Mm-hmm.
There's an entire other species, the Kree, that has their own
They need to be
But you
saved
don't know
too.
if they're in trouble
Kree-manity.
anymore.
Well,
Hold on, you mean
we
the
can
Skrulls?
assume-
Skrulls, the
I mean,
Skrulls.
the Skrull-manity, we can assume.
Skrull-manity.
Like, to say that she should just abandon these people for these other people, I think.
Well, so
is-
there is a throwaway line I think in Captain Marvel. She says, "Don't call me unless it's important." I think she said
Yeah.
she literally says that.
It has been important before, is what I'm saying.
There's really nothing smooth. I think that's my biggest criticism of this movie. It has all the beats, but none of them seem to move smoothly. Like, especially if you, which no one's going to watch this as their first Marvel movie. Like, maybe some child who was just born is going to see this as their, but like, you wouldn't want this to be your entry point for the Marvel franchise.
yeah.
So you already have all this information. So when they have a sequence where she goes, "Give it to me," and he's like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "That pager, because you are just gonna blah, blah, blah," or whatever. And she like does this thing, and then she takes the pager. I'm like, oh, that's their way of her getting the pager? Like, I feel like there has to be a smoother way other than her saying, "Give me pager so I can turn it into super pager."
Yeah.
Like,
it almost kind of sucks that like this didn't come out years ago, and then when Ronan sort of popped up in Guardians, she maybe popped like
Oh, yeah.
kind of appeared like I
it's
don't
definitely
know.
places where it feels like it could have been, I don't know. They didn't pull a Futurama where you see the shadow of Nibbler beneath the chair in the first episode. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I think. Go ahead.
This is supposed to set us up for Avengers,
It is.
and for me it wasn't quite the like push to Avengers.
No,
for me.
it wasn't.
I also think that this is kind of like, it's merging the terrestrial Marvel with cosmic Marvel, except that it takes itself way more seriously than a Guardians or a Thor Ragnarok does. So those are already like 2-3 movies, if you count Volume 2, that take what you think is going to be a sci-fi epic story, and then they kind of like, whoops, we
Yeah.
flipped it on you. Like even the opening to Guardians, when like he's exploring that temple, and you're like, oh shit, this is like fucking hardcore. And then he plays music and he dances, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
we've done it.
It's light,
This,
yeah.
this movie never does that.
No, well,
it's like if they
I
had
think it
landed
tried.
at the
It kept trying.
but like even at the opening, it like takes itself very seriously. It's all very militaristic, and I'm like, when you've already had movies in your franchise that have subverted those expectations, it's weird to then make one that kind of fulfills them.
Well, to your point, the cat reshoots, I think they were like, this movie's too serious.
Maybe, yeah.
We need to
needs
add in
more
more
Goose.
more cat. Yeah.
I mean, Goose is great. Don't get me wrong.
It's
Love
fu-
myself a CG cat.
I was gonna say the cat CG the entire time, which kind of bothered me.
I kept liking when Mendelsohn would like kind of.
That was
Yeah,
funny.
Like
scared of
the
the
fact that
cat.
he was terrified of the.
That was funny.
Flurben? What is
Flurkin,
that?
the Flurkin.
You know why that was
Flurkin.
funny? It's because it was physical.
Yeah.
It was because it was Samuel L. Jackson holding an actual cat
Right.
at a guy who's dressed to look like a monster.
doing this.
That's where the comedy comes from of that sequence. Not necessarily a CG cat going
with tentacles
Yeah, with
and stuff like that. By the way, the cat's an alien. Spoiler. And does anybody know what a Flurkin is? Were we supposed to know what this was?
I only know.
No, okay.
I'm not familiar with Captain Marvel that much, but I did know that there is a cat because Marvel Puzzle Quest that you can get the cat and it has tentacles coming.
Do
out of it.
you remember Captain Marvel in the '90s X-Men cartoon?
You mean Ms. Marvel?
Was that what it was?
Oh, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think so.
I just remember Rogue killing someone and stealing all their powers.
Yeah, Ms.
And that was
Marvel.
like my introduction to this character.
This is the bathing suit version of her.
Huh.
Not the fighter pilot version of her.
So I guess another big spoiler is that the engine was the Tesseract that Captain America had in the first Captain America.
Well, it's also
same
the
device,
Tesseract
right?
that was in Loki's staff, right? Okay, let me ask you this,
So yeah,
guys.
the timeline of that confuses me. a
Yeah,
little
well,
bit.
yeah, because I want to ask you this question. At the very end of the movie, the last end credits sequence is the cat like hairballing up a Tesseract onto Nick Fury's
Yeah.
desk. That was that just back in the 90s? Because
Right?
it showed an empty desk. It had to have been, right? There's
It's the
not
same exact
There's
desk.
not two Tesseracts.
Yeah, they would have. I feel like they would have had to have done something visible to his desk to show us that the passage of time.
Doesn't
they
the
didn't.
first Avengers movie begin with them performing tests on the Tesseract?
So it has
And
to be
Loki
the same.
shows up.
It has
and
to
then
be the
Loki
same.
shows up, and then he gets it, and then he takes over Hawkeye, and that's how Avengers begins, right?
Has to be the same Tesseract.
So I
right?
assume that the cat just
so.
got it, and he was like, "Oh,
I
I
was
have the
confused.
Tesseract, and he's going to do it." But I also was confused because I'm like, "Well, what's the significance of this scene then?"
I like.
That's like you could have just shown a suitcase opening.
So it would have really helped if Nick Fury had been there with like young man. You know,
Yeah, we should do experiments on this
yeah,
someday.
Or just
To me, that wasn't even like a plot. It was just tangential to be
for
like,
fun.
here's a fun thing
Here's a
with the cat. The
connection.
cat's choked it up. It's fun.
But it's
All right.
weird.
That's what I thought.
but
That's what I
good,
took
okay.
away from
It's
it.
weird when it's one of the most prized possessions in all the galaxy.
yeah.
It's hard to just make it feel like it's just
Yeah, how did
fluff.
How did
you
the
know?
Kree doctor get it? Because didn't the Red Skull have it? I don't remember Captain America very well.
Captain America?
Like, at the
yeah,
end of that movie, what happened to that thing?
it got frozen. I
Got
thought.
frozen in ice, I thought.
Anyway,
I don't know.
Well, I
That's
bet-
why I was like, this is a weird things though. Why do you set it in 95 if you still want to muddle things up?
Yeah.
You should just keep it separate, right? I don't know. Seriously, that's I don't know. It's weird.
so
but
I guess that there was. Sorry.
I was just gonna say to the time portion. Now people are gonna be comparing that Wonder Woman 1984 or whatever to the like how
Yeah,
they
that's
handle
right.
doing a different decade. It's gonna be another constant comparison. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
I don't know. Oh, and something else I thought was actually really fucking dumb that tried to connect this movie to the other movies was his source for the name The Avengers.
yeah.
I don't know. It all screams of like explaining why Han Solo is Han Solo. It's like I
Yeah.
don't need some. of this
feel-
shit.
Him getting his eye scratched.
Someone thought it was really clever, but it's not.
It felt ham-fisted. You're totally right. The eye scratch thing I thought was funny. I actually liked that. I may be the only person,
well,
but
it was weird
I thought it
though
was funny.
because there was already a sequence earlier
fine.
that subverted that.
that was the point. That's why
Yeah,
I liked it
that's-
because you're waiting the whole movie to find out
You
what
wanna know
happened.
what
to
But I
his
didn't
eye.
think it would
eye.
happen in this movie. I didn't think. I was like, oh, he's got two eyes.
Oh, I thought
I
it
don't
would
need to necessarily see why.
That's
And then
fine with
also,
it.
it felt like it was yet another because it's something completely unrelated happens. Cuts to him in a cockpit, which isn't where we were before in the scene. Him again playing with the cat, and it scratches him really bad.
I know.
And then he's like, oh, it's fine. But then it's not fun. I don't. It's just. I was like, is there no smoother way?
What I
if you
guess-
want him to lose his eyes, there no. It's like again, it's Han Solo walking up and going, "You're all alone, Solo." I'm like, that's how you figured it out.
What it maybe needed was like a whole bunch of very dire situations that would have
For his
potentially
eye.
blinded him throughout the movie, and then
Yeah. Close
and then
calls.
No, Lisa's right.
The one with
Lisa's
the
right.
cat.
Yeah.
Because we got the car accident at the beginning. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is it. And then it didn't happen.
That was
if there
funny.
had been like 2 or 3 more.
yeah, you
Yes,
need more
that's how
beats of
comedy
that.
works.
But
Yeah, right,
they-
like-
maybe that's cut stuff. Or
Maybe it was cut.
I do think like because like it's Captain America, the first Avenger,
but she's.
but now is she the first Avenger?
No, because it was like 1940, whatever.
Because he's older than her.
But then the name came in the 90s.
I don't think they ever refer to him as an Avenger in his movie.
I don't know if they do.
I assume someone would have checked that. I assume they could have gotten a PA to watch it and see if they ever use the term Avenger. But it is weird. It does kind of like, I mean, it's bound to happen. This is which number in a
21.
21. So it's bound to happen eventually. I think they've done a remarkable job with it so
MCU
far.
can drink now.
I'm still very excited to see Infinity
Endgame?
War Endgame.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
I think it's gonna be fucking stellar. I'm excited to see her interact with the other people. I think people will probably like Captain Marvel more after the next Infinity War than they
definitely
will
will.
after this movie, because there are some glimmers of her cool new, not full Thor. I'm having so much fun,
Right.
But I do love to scrap it up. Basically, a Captain America that doesn't brood every time he has to fight. You know?
It was the same with Captain America. When you watched the first Avenger, that I remember being like, that was kind of boring. Then you watch Avengers, and you're like, holy shit,
He fits.
I love Captain America.
Yeah,
Everybody
this is
loved
where
him
he
after
fits.
that because
Yeah.
he fits so well. So
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to take half of the fun she has when she's just scrapping with Jude Law in her like wrestling with him or whatever, and you want to apply that to just her in
like
in
her
battles.
fighting
that
Thanos.
fun-loving. Yeah.
Yeah, the escaping the Skrull ship I thought was pretty fun. Like she showed some personality in her fighting in that
Yeah.
I enjoyed. But
yeah, totally.
it was just I think the action was disjointed. There was a point in the infight when she's fighting Jude Law, and then it cuts to the Skrulls running away, and Jude Law is there, and they cut back to the fight, and he's not. Like it makes no sense.
That was, like James was saying, the editing wasn't the best.
A little excited.
Yeah.
Yeah, the editing wasn't the best.
I feel like you couldn't see that in that spaceship fight. You couldn't see what was happening. It
I
was
agree.
dark.
There's also a point because there's a battle happening on Earth and then also in the spaceship, but one's like a flying chase. Just putting this out here, just for anyone watching or any of you guys, if you are chasing someone through a canyon in spaceships, you can go above the canyon
You could say that.
and still pursue.
I know.
It works. It's shocking, and it'll probably be way easier. They're more likely to
Nah,
crash.
then
Just
than you.
shoot down.
You get
You
upper
just fly
canyon
above.
drag, and I just,
And then when they
I'd say
come
no,
out, you
don't-
keep going. You don't
don't
need to
do
go
that.
in
Don't
after.
listen.
You're absolutely right. All right.
Go through the
I agree.
canyon.
I mean, I'm just saying. It happens all the time.
All right. Anybody you got anything else?
I think
I don't know that you. The only reason you need to see this movie in theaters is because of Endgame. That's
Yeah.
it.
I don't even know if you need to. I guess it won't be out
yeah, you need to
because
see
this
it.
is not going to be on Netflix. This is
No,
going
it
to be
won't.
Disney
They-
Plus.
They did that on purpose.
Yeah.
They did that on purpose.
When does Disney Plus exist? I don't even know.
Oh, that's not going to
I
be.
mean, it doesn't matter. This is not going to be available.
Avengers is 6 weeks from now.
Yeah.
So
they're
it's,
going to keep this in theaters until Avengers,
Correct.
and then they're going to try and get another boost before Avengers comes.
I mean, I don't know that anything happens in this movie other than introducing Carol Danvers that would be necessary. Because whatever that credit roll scene when she like shows up in the post credits,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
definitely gonna be in that movie. Like, there's no way they don't do that there. So
yeah.
I always want to call her Carol Beavers.
Carol
I
Beavers.
don't know why.
Beavers.
I don't know why.
I did like the idea that Jude Law was like, who is this person? I don't know who they are, but I will take them back. I will reprogram their whole personality, and I will get rid of their memory of all this ever happening. So they'll work with me. What's her last name? That's your name.
That's funny.
Seemed like a little short-sighted. He should go, your name is Blorblack.
Yeah, no, anything.
black.
Anything but Veers.
Oh, well.
All right. Yeah, so I agree. I don't know if you should run out and see it in the theater. You could watch it at home unless you're super stoked for Avengers.
Yeah, you got 6 weeks. I mean, you got 6 weeks. They're not going to put it on Netflix, or you're not going to be able to download this, rent this, or anything. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's fun.
It's fine.
Yeah,
It's fun.
it's a fun night.
It's fine.
It's a fun
Again,
night.
like,
Actually, I like her all right. I think
Oh, I liked
she's,
her a lot.
She's snarky,
Yeah.
kind of 2D, and I think that's cool.
when they actually let her play in those scenes,
Yeah.
she's good.
Do they save their theater ticket money for us coming out in a couple weeks?
Good point.
Because I'm pretty pumped for that
That might
movie.
be a better movie. That might be a better movie.
But,
All right.
Yeah.
Y'all good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for coming around, you guys. Let us know what you thought about this movie, and if you would have re-wished the Lance Bass situation and that James and
Remember,
Bruce wouldn't
R
have
for
pushed out.
retweet, L for like, and zero for nothing.
I would have not interacted at all. Dealing with
Sorry,
the
Lance.
zeros.
I know.
I'm telling you. Be fun.
Bye, guys.
But then the helicopter gets taken over by Blofeld, who's in a wheelchair, like controlling it. He's like, "This is it, Mr. Bond." But then Roger Moore takes control of the helicopter, finds Blofeld, picks him up in the wheelchair on the hook of the helicopter, and then dumps him into a giant like nuclear pipe or whatever.
That's awesome.